Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year, and welcome to the outlet. I'm glad you all could join us today. So, we're going to kick off our year this year with finding out how to reset, de-stress, and find balance. So, I'm going to introduce to you our wonderful and talented founder of SheTek, Chaya. Just so you all know that the chat doesn't seem to be working. I'm not quite sure why. I'll keep trying to fix that. But if you have any questions or any statements, you can pop them into the Q&A. Normally, everybody is going to be off camera and off microphones. But like I said, pop those questions or any comments into the Q&A and we'll get started. So Chaya, if you could turn on your camera, please, and join us and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, this is something new, Joanne.
I know.
It's New Year, new stuff. Happy New Year to all of you. Thanks for joining us. We're really excited to continue with this series of webinars for SheTek, and we're so happy and excited about today's topic because we all, at the beginning of the year, we all make promises to ourselves that we won't stress ourselves too much. We'll maintain a good work-life balance, great healthy habits, and so it's a real good topic to kick off the new year. As you all know, I'm the founder of SheTek, and SheTek started off as Pamton's initiative to bring in more women into tech industry. With my experience, not seeing so many women in the tech industry really motivated me to initiate this program. So we are really happy, and Joanne will give a lot more details about what SheTek does, but we are really excited about the coming year. And without much delay, I think we should bring on Dr. Nadia Sanatana. We're so excited and happy to have Nadia with us today. And Nadia will introduce herself. And I met Nadia in one of the SheTek events, and her energy and enthusiasm, and she's such a lively person. I think she practices what she talks about. And today we are going to learn some new tips and learn how to de-stress ourselves. And there will be some questions, some conversation, and Nadia will also be sharing some resources with you. So, Nadia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Chaya, for that lovely introduction. My name is Nadia Sanatana. I am a nurse practitioner, and I'm very excited to speak to you today about health and wellness in the workplace. Now, before we get started, I would like to start a brief grounding exercise to drop into the energy of just being present. Now, I know many of you are busy throughout the day, you're doing a million different things, and I encourage you for the next hour to just put everything aside, turn off your phone, and just be present. So if you can with me, go ahead, close your eyes, and we're going to do a grounding exercise together. So close your eyes. Place one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, and begin to settle in. Only do this if you can safely do this. If you're driving, please don't. Now take a deep breath in through the nose, inhaling, lifting, feeling the chest and the belly fill in with air. Hold in the back of the throat. Exhale. Release. Again, deep breath in through the nose, holding at the back of the throat, exhaling through the mouth, release. And do this for several more breaths on your own timing. And as you begin to drop in, just notice any changes in your body. If your mind starts to wander, or if you're thinking of something else, just bring it back to the breath. You can take care of everything else you need to take care of after this call. Feel the jaw relax. Feel the shoulders start to pull away from one another. We hold so much tension in our shoulders that it's amazing to feel the difference when they're actually relaxed. Feel the heart start to slow down, feeling present in your body. And no matter what comes up, no matter what you're feeling, it's all good. No judgment here. Just acknowledge how you're feeling. Are you feeling great? Is this bringing up something for you? Whatever it is, it's all good. Now again, deep breath in through the nose, holding at the back of the throat, exhaling, release. And now we can begin our amazing presentation. All right, so as Chaya said, I am a nurse practitioner. My name is Dr. Nadia Sanatana, and I wanted to start off with this slide about me because what I've noticed in myself and the people that I work with is that our resumes are not actually indicative of how we're feeling in real life. And so many years ago, I had a coach, and this tagline just drew me in, and it was, "Do you feel as good as you look on paper?" And that was such a light bulb moment for me because I did not feel as good as I looked on paper. And I think many of you will resonate with my journey. And that's why I wanted to start off with this, because even though I'm not your sister in tech, I am your sister in STEM. And I think perhaps you may have gone through some of what I have gone through as well. So many moons ago on my resume was looking great. I'm a nurse practitioner. I graduated from an Ivy League school with my doctorate degree. And over the last decade or so, I've been a serial entrepreneur, starting and stopping many different businesses. I'm a published author. I wrote a book on how to become a nurse practitioner, published by Peter Lang. And I've also published with the HuffPost and on several different other websites. Additionally, I'm a yoga teacher, I'm a media host, and I've done a bunch of really great things. Now, I'm not saying this to bring up any accolades. I'm saying this because my resume did not reflect how I was feeling in real life. My resume was indicative of my professional life, but in reality, I wasn't feeling good about myself. In real life, I was chronically stressed and burned out. As a nurse practitioner, I'm taking care of many sick patients. And I remember I had one job where I'd had to be to work at 7 a.m. And when I got to work about 6:30 in the morning, there'd be a line of patients out the door. And I just never knew what I was walking into. I was so stressed about what the day would bring me. I would wake up feeling anxious. I had chronic abdominal pain, and I just wasn't living my best life. I remember I'd be waking up in the middle of the night being like, oh my God, did I send that prescription? Did I do that referral? And really, I wasn't able to separate my personal life from my professional life. It just all melted over. I was really unhappy and just feeling unfulfilled. And I was just going through the motions. I don't know if you've seen that movie Groundhog Day, where Bill Murray wakes up every day in the same life. And that's how I was living my life. It was like Groundhog Day. I was going through the motions. And I knew that there was more out there, but I didn't know what it was. I was just not in alignment, right? Like I was not in alignment with this amazing resume that I had and the real life that I was living. And so I needed to make some changes. So about 3 years ago, I went through this giant spiritual awakening, and I realized I was in the wrong marriage. I realized I was not where I wanted to be in my career, and I had to make some serious changes. And so over the next few years, I really worked on myself and began to become in alignment with the person that I wanted to show up as in the world. I beat burnout. I was chronically burned out. I beat burnout, which is something we're going to talk about today because this is something that many, many people experience. And I began to follow my heart and embrace the unknown. I know there's so much pressure out there to do all the things, right? You know, we're taking care of our homes and our families and showing up as these rock stars in our career. And I decided to put all that noise aside and just listen to my own heart and my own guidance. And I began to prioritize myself, right? You know how they tell you on the airplane, like, put on the oxygen mask first before you do that for your child. And it's because you can't take care of your child if you're not well. And so this is why we need to really prioritize ourselves. It is not selfish. It's probably the best thing you can do for yourself and the world. Because if you're not good, how can you take care of your loved ones and show up at work? And I also learned how to release the need to know and control the outcome, right? If you think about it, how much control do we really have in life? Like, I wanted to control every facet of my life, and I realized just by letting go, I was able to have a better outcome. And so I'd like to start off with a poll. Joanne, if you could go into our poll. Do you feel as good as you look on paper? I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to know if you feel as good as you look on paper. And I don't know, Joanne, where the results pop up. Okay, so this is interesting. 86% of you are not feeling as good as you look on paper. So hopefully we can change that a little bit today. And for those of you who are feeling as good as you look on paper, that's amazing. I'm happy for you, and hopefully you'll still get something out of this presentation. Okay, so today, because this is SheTek, we are going to talk about stress in tech, and especially women in tech. So while doing my research for this presentation, I found some incredible statistics that I was really surprised by, that women make up just over a quarter of the tech workforce. Okay, so just over a quarter of the entire tech workforce. And as you probably know, working in tech, there is a lack of women, there's a lack of diversity and minorities within tech. Not only are women making up just over a quarter of the tech workforce, but women are actually only making up 28% of leadership roles, which I found incredible. And this is actually on the decline. So if you think about it, less than a third of women make up the tech workforce, and less than a third of women actually make up leadership roles. Now, there are a lot of reasons why women are not in those leadership roles. So for example, there is a lack of opportunity for advancement. Training is typically geared towards men. Men and women learn differently, and training is designed to work for the men. Women are also involved in tasks that we may not deem promotable, right? So such as committees, party planning, or mentoring other women. And additionally, women are less likely to ask for advances and raises, right? Generally, men are more aggressive in asking about these things. And I've learned that the hard way myself in my career, where I used to be scared of asking for what I wanted and what I felt like I deserved. And now I just ask for what I want. And I'd encourage you to take on that approach, because really, we don't get what we don't ask for most of the time. And so asking, what's the worst that you could be told, is no. Now, additionally, which is also incredible, is that half of women working in tech feel burned out. That's 1 out of every 2 women is burned out. That means half of you on this call working in tech are burned out. And we're going to talk more about burnout and what that means a little bit later, but it's just incredible that this statistic. Now, why is that? Now, burnout is a workplace phenomenon, but really women are taking on so much of the role, not only juggling work, but also juggling home. You know, women are more of the caregivers for the children, raising the children, or perhaps taking care of the home. So really, we're taking on 2 roles, career and family, or relationship, or whatever you have going on in your personal life. Additionally, we're not talking about self-care enough in the workplace. Yes, there's workplace wellness, and workplaces have spent thousands, if not millions of dollars trying to implement wellness. But this doesn't often translate into people being able to take advantage. I've seen this firsthand where a company I was working with had spent lots of money on creating wellness programs for their employees. But if their employees aren't able to take advantage of them, then what's the point, right? And this is where I specialize in workplace wellness, is like, how do we get people to actually take advantage of these programs and to feel better at work? Additionally, tech, as you know, is incredibly fast paced and ever changing. And so if you're constantly having to adapt to something new, adapt to a new role or a new technology, that is incredibly stressful, and that can ultimately lead to burnout. And so we're going to talk next about stress. All right. So because I'm a medical provider, I had to give you a little bit of information on the how stress is incredibly bad on the body. You probably already know that stress is not healthy, but really it is very, very unhealthy. And most people don't realize just how unhealthy stress can be. And it's called the silent killer. What else is called the silent killer is high blood pressure is also called the silent killer, right? And so I wanted to put this definition that stress is a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. And most people do not realize just how bad stress can be. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit here. But does this sound familiar to you, right? Once this project is done, then I'll be able to rest. Once this quarter is finished, then I can rest. Once X happens, then this, right? Does that sound familiar? I know that's how I lived my life for a long time. Once this week is over, or especially when I was in nursing school, so once the semester is over, then I can rest. But you know what happened when the semester was over? I got sick, right? The immune system is protecting me throughout my studies. And then once I was able to let my guard down, of course, I inevitably got sick. And I see this a lot with my patients as well. Or you could also be saying, oh, it's fine, I can handle it, right? It's no big deal. We see this a lot where as women, we feel pressure to take on more and more responsibility and tend to blow it off like, oh, it's no big deal. But it really is a big deal, right? And so if you think about it, if you're living your life in this, it's kind of like this vicious cycle where it's like, okay, you're going to get over this one hurdle and then you'll be fine. But really it's a circle, it's a circular. In reality, there's always another stressor around the corner. Life is always going to be throwing you curveballs. Life is always going to be throwing you something. And so if you're just living to manage that acute stress, it's just going to have some detrimental effects on your body. Not only your mental health, but your physical health as well. So in my practice, I'm a primary care provider, and the majority of my patients that I see have a root cause of stress. And there's stats out there about this as well. So what are some symptoms? Insomnia, huge one, not being able to sleep, laying awake at night with those vicious thoughts. I've been there, right? When I think about, oh, I could have done more for this patient, or I should have done X, Y, and Z. GI upset. So abdominal pain is one of the biggest complaints we see in primary care. And I can go through an entire workup with a patient, all the imaging and everything. And if it turns out it's negative, it's usually stress is the root cause. They're feeling it in the body. And I'm sure you felt this as well. Back pain can be a sign of stress. Rash, we've seen rash as a sign of stress as well. Now, although we're talking about stress today in the workplace, right? We're talking about stress at work. Stress comes from everywhere, right? It can come from finances. That is a big one that we see, right? Stress. How are you going to pay this? How are you going to get this for that? Family can be a huge stressor, especially if you have children and you're worried about them. Your health can be a stressor, your physical health, your emotional, your mental health. And your relationships. I see a lot with my patients that their partner is creating a lot of stress in their life, right? And so they may be coming in with X, Y, and Z symptom, but turns out that it's actually their marriage or their partner that's causing stress. And so really, there's no shortage of stress triggers. Stress is everywhere. So it's not about just eliminating. You're never going to be able to fully eliminate stress, but it's about reducing it and learning how to deal with it and hopefully preventing it, right? So let's talk about the short-term consequences and the long-term consequences of stress on the body, okay? So we've talked about a little bit of these, but headaches can be a symptom of stress, right? You're at work, you have a headache, you're stressed out. Insomnia, which can lead to a decreased immune function. There's a ton of studies on this, that if you're not sleeping, your immune system does not function optimally as it should, and you're more susceptible to getting sick, right? Rash, as I talked about, and emotional reactivity. Now, this is a really big one and a big symptom of stress. If you think about it, I know I'm guilty of this myself, is let's say something is happening in my personal life and I take it out on my partner or my friend. And I know we've all done this at some point in our life and another. And really it's because of the stress. We're less able to really regulate our emotions. We're emotionally reactive. Anxiety and stress, huge correlation right there, right? The majority of patients that are stressed are also feeling anxious, right? Because we feel these symptoms in our body. Yes, anxiety is a mental health thing, but we feel it in our body. You know, we can develop heart racing, sweating, just feeling on edge. And again, as I talked about, GI upset, abdominal pain, just not feeling good in the gut. We feel these in different stressors at different parts of our body. Now, the long-term consequences are pretty severe in terms of stress, and one of them is high blood pressure. Now, I had a patient that I treated before that had come to me and she was on high blood pressure medications, and she told me it's because she was stressed out at work and this is the only thing that she could do to manage her blood pressure. Well, it wasn't the only thing she could do. It was the choice that she opted for. And I wasn't going to say it was the right choice, the wrong choice for her, is what she needed to do. But her blood pressure was still not controlled. And so she most likely would need to be on another medication. And so in that case, she didn't get to the root cause. She opted for taking medication, which that was right for her. But really, she's not addressing the root cause. And medications have side effects. You know, so many providers out there are just providing a prescription, like glossing over. It's like putting a Band-Aid on what's going on. But really, we need to address the root cause etiology for what's going on in your body, because as you know, Band-Aids fall off, right? Like you're going to put a Band-Aid on and like gloss over the problem, but that doesn't mean the problem goes away. The symptoms may temporarily go away, but the problem doesn't go away. Some other stress-related chronic diseases: type 2 diabetes, obesity, chronic GI issues, so chronic abdominal issues, and then this can lead to burnout. We're going to talk about that shortly in the next slide. Now, what's interesting here is that heart attacks, I had to put the statistic on here because there's no way that this is a coincidence that more heart attacks happen on Monday than any other day. And to me, that's just crazy that as a society, we are so stressed out that we have a heart attack. And you're not seeing this happen on Friday and Saturday where you're relaxing. You're seeing this on Friday, or on Monday, the first day of the work week. And so it's just pretty incredible. So I just wanted to share with you, I know this doesn't sound great, this is not great news, but we're going to talk about how to fix this shortly here. But stress really is a silent killer. And so if you are feeling chronically stressed, especially in the workplace, I'd really encourage you to do some deep reflection so this doesn't turn into something worse, right? Let's prevent it before it gets worse. All right, so let's talk about burnout. Many people throw this word around saying that they're burned out, but I wanted to give you guys the real definition that it is a work-related syndrome. Burnout is chronic workplace stress. We don't use burnout in other parts of our lives except for your job, right? And it's interesting because burnout is not considered an actual diagnosis. Like, I wouldn't be able to diagnose someone as burnout, but I think it should be a diagnosis because it's a huge, huge issue. it's interesting here that burnout affects women more than men and those 55 and younger. So if you're a woman and you are younger than 55, you are more likely to suffer from burnout. And burnout, it culminates in physical exhaustion. So stress, the difference between stress and burnout, right, is like stress, you are able to like handle what's going on. You may not feel good, but you're still able to show up. You're still able to get your job done. Even though you're not feeling great, you're still able to, be productive and show up in the workplace. Burnout is physical exhaustion, and it's like you don't have any more to give. It's like your cup is fully empty. You just can't show up. It's like you have nothing more left to give. And this can culminate in hopelessness and depression. So a lot of people who are seen for depression, their depression is actually a symptom of their burnout, right? Now, consequences are huge for corporations, and it's really incredible, these statistics here. So first of all, there's missed work days. A lot of employees are calling out sick when they're actually burned out. I know I've experienced this myself, where I haven't been able to show up to work because I was so burned out, so fried. And especially me in a position where I'm taking care of other people, it's like, how can I take care of my patients if I'm feeling so burned out? It's just not safe or healthy. We see this a lot in the medical field. A lot of medical providers are burned out. Loss of productivity, right? So my whole premise in life is feel better, do better, right? You feel better so you can do better and show up as your greatest, most fabulous self. But you're not able to show up that way if you're burned out. And of course, that translates to loss of productivity. This is a no-brainer here, that if you're burned out, you're not able to be as productive as you could be if you're feeling good, right? And then increased turnover. In business, we know that turnover is very costly. And so this statistic is mind-boggling to me, that up to $350 billion are lost annually in productivity on an annual basis, right? Like, this is a huge, staggering number. And it's so interesting because if corporations, businesses focused on prevention, right? Like, it is far cheaper to prevent burnout and take care of your people and make sure your people are happy and healthy than it is to, mitigate after the fact the billions of dollars lost. And so if you look at it not only from a humanitarian perspective, where it's like, let's take care of our people, let's make sure our people are good, but also from an economic standpoint, it's incredible to me that we're not focusing more on wellness of our employees at work, because really it's your corporations are losing billions because people aren't feeling well enough to show up. And so burnout is a consequence of chronic stress at work. And so if you do not manage stress, you may find yourself at burnout. Now, the issue with burnout is that really the only way to treat burnout is to remove yourself from your job. And this doesn't usually happen by taking like a long weekend or vacation. This is taking some significant time off. And so really burnout, we don't want to arrive at burnout. It is not a good place to be. And so we want to be able to manage our stress as best we can, because at burnout, it's just, you just feel done. So I'd like to know if you've felt burnout, stress in the last year. I'd like to hear from you. How have you been feeling? Does this resonate? Oh, right. So these are interesting. Excessive stress, 25%, a quarter of you. Burnout, a quarter of you. Both 38%, neither 13%. So really, we need to work on this, because burnout is just so detrimental. So Chaya, I'd love for you to chime in about this as well, seeing as you are in tech and probably see a lot of this.
Awesome. Okay. Nadia, thank you so much for all that context that you shared with us, and some of the statistics. Sometimes looking at the statistics actually brings the reality right in front of you. I know the tech industry, definitely it's stress related, mainly because you have, the people are working overtime and they have to meet the delivery deadlines. And especially COVID hasn't really helped much, because, a lot of Zoom calls, Zoom meetings, And then women are at home and they have to do both, the personal stuff they have to take care of and also attend the meetings and do the work. So it's actually demanded a lot more work-life balance, for women in their lives, especially after COVID. So I won't say it is just limited to tech industry. As you rightly said, it's across the globe, right? Every other person I talk to, people kind of say, oh, I'm stressed now, I'm stressed. It looks like the stress levels are increasing as the time goes by, which is actually a lot more concerning. And I'm one of those people guilty of not really caring for myself, and really because of all the responsibilities that I have. And there are many days I wake up with messages on my WhatsApp that give me stress in the day because I have to juggle my priorities in the day. So stress levels are different for each individual, right? So I think, based on what you said, one thing that resonated really well with me is know your gut, how you feel in your gut, which I've not done for many years. I didn't even relate it to your gut, right? So I think that my first question is, since we talked about stress and burnout and all that, how do you even recognize those stress triggers? Because people, as you rightly said, people fall sick, they have some issues and they're treated for the symptoms, not really for the root cause. And it's all related to stress. So even I learned to some extent, one of the biggest mantra that I do is I surround myself with people with positive energy. I don't want people to give me any negative energy. I keep saying this because I learned this as one of my tools. But how do you even recognize that you're going through stress and you really need to address that? What are the triggers?
That is an amazing question. And I'm glad you asked that, Chaya, because stress can show up for people in so many different ways. I think the biggest key here is having awareness of how you are feeling in your body. There are so many of us that are living on empty, right? It's like that's another symptom of burnout. It's like you're on E. Like if you think of like a gas tank, you're on E. So you have to check in with yourself. You have to ask yourself, like, how do I feel? Your body will tell you. Like you say you wake up and you check your messages and you probably feel like a tightening in your chest or in your gut. Those are all indications that this is a stressor for you. So you have to really slow down and listen to your body is so wise. Your body is ancient. Your body knows more than your head, right? We try to fight how we're feeling in our body, but our body doesn't lie to us. Our thoughts may lie to us, but we're thinking in our head, but our body won't. And so you really have to check in with yourself. Like, how does it make me feel? Like when you go to work, how do I feel when I'm stepping in? Am I feeling anxious or am I feeling excited? How do I feel when I'm answering to my manager? Am I feeling like dread or am I feeling like, oh, I'm excited for this conversation, right? And so you have to check in with your body and see what is triggering you, because guarantee if when you're at the beach and you're enjoying yourself, unless if your head is somewhere else, you're not going to be feeling that anxiety. You're not going to feel the tension in the body. So first of all, being aware, right? And then I guess we're going to move on from awareness. So you've got the awareness that something's triggering you, right? The next step is, okay, well, how do we change? How do we go from chronically stressed and preventing burnout to like thriving, right? It's like many of us are surviving and not thriving. So how do we go from survival mode to thriving? Well, number one, the awareness of the triggers, right? And two, so I have this framework, and the first is the awareness. The second part is intention to change. Now you may say, okay, I'm stressed out, but I don't intend to change because I can't figure out another way to do it. Okay, there's always another way, but if you don't have the intention, meaning you don't have the desire to want to change and change your stress, it's not going to happen. And I see this all the time in my medical practice. A patient may come in and say, they may have a different goal than mine. My goal for my patients is always to have them live healthier and happier lives, but not everyone has that goal. Their goal might be like, hey, I just need a doctor's note. I don't care. I don't want to address my diabetes. I don't want to, get another medication. I don't care. I just want to take care of this issue. Okay, that's fine. And if you're not ready to change, that's fine. Now, the third part, which is the most difficult part, but it's not impossible, is action. All right. So you've got the awareness, you've got the intention to change. Now we have to take action because nothing changes unless you change, right? And so you need to take action steps to manage your stress.
Thank you. I think that's important, right? To be aware of the stress and then having the intention, which is actually a tough thing with the demanding priorities in life, but at least making small efforts to change and take action. I agree. It's important. So what are your favorite methods? I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of different techniques and methods to address stress, but what are your favorite methods and what do you want to share with our listeners today?
I've got a ton of methods that I love. I think for across the board, regardless, because we all manage stress differently. We all have different stressors and we all prefer a way to manage our stress. But I think the first step is to give yourself some compassion and self-love for where you are. Like, recognize where you are at this moment. You're not doing yourself any favors by like judging yourself, like, oh, I shouldn't be this stressed, or gosh, if only things were like, just be with yourself and say, okay, this is where I am. Thank God that I know where I am right now, because then you have the awareness and then you can work on change. So I'm all about self-care. Now, many people tell me, oh, well, there's nothing I can do. I'm just so busy. But really, I don't agree with that at all. There's always change that could be happen. But you have to kind of look at it as like, is my desire to change more than how I'm feeling now? Like, is the risk of stress and burnout like severe enough for me to like stop in my tracks and say, okay, I need to make a change? And for many of you, if you're not there, that's completely fine. You will get there somewhere. But really, it begins with self-care. So what does that look like? So self-care for someone may be going to the gym before work and saying, okay, I need to go to the gym to manage my stress. A lot of my friends in the medical community, they need the gym. They go for primarily their mental health. They're not going for their physical health. Of course, that's a benefit, but they're going because, hey, I am so stressed out that I need to blow off some steam, right? So that may be a way to mitigate stress for somebody. Someone else may say, I need a massage. Like, me going to get a massage once a month or every couple weeks is a way for me to release my stress. Someone else may say journaling is a great way for me to manage my stress. So again, this goes back into being aware of yourself, really knowing yourself, right? You need to know the cause, and then you need to know what helps you. And not every scenario is going to involve the same thing. So something, workplace stress may be a different self-care, how it looks versus, stress in your relationship. But I will say that a big thing that you can do for yourself, not just, the self-care aspect of like getting good sleep, and it's like going back to basics: sleep, eating healthy, exercise, drinking water, but also asking for what you need. Now, many people do not ask for what they need, and we are an individualistic society. And we need to go back to becoming communal society where we depend on one another. And so it's a place of vulnerability where you can open your heart and like tell your manager, hey, I'm not doing so well, I need this, or your partner or whoever it is, because no one can read our minds, right? So we really need to ask for what we need.
That's a great suggestion. Great tips, Nadia. I think one of the things that really resonate with me is really giving time for yourself and then asking that question. Also ask for help. A lot of times we think that we can handle the situation, right? It's not a big deal. I can take care of it or whatever, but we don't really necessarily go and ask for help, right? That is one thing. And the second thing is about really starting to take the action, and then you start to see the benefits, right? That's one thing I learned is, change my diet, do a little bit of exercise every day, which I haven't done for years. But when I started to do that, I realized the benefit of it. I'm starting to see the benefit. And then that's how your mind tells you, hey, you got to continue. right? And that starting trouble, right? I've even known people, including me, who say, oh, from this year, I'm going to start exercising, and we go and do shopping and we buy things. And then it runs for a couple of weeks and then that's it. So that commitment is the biggest thing. And what do you suggest for people to really stick to that commitment and be persistent about it?
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, Chaya, because I also have a problem with commitment to, I want to do something and then I fall off my exercise routine. I struggle with that myself too. I think number one is knowing your why. Like, what is your why? Why do you want to commit to being the healthiest and best version of yourself, right? Because ultimately, for me, that's the goal. My goal is, I don't have reducing stress in the background. I have, how can Nadia show up as like the best version of herself? And part of that is reducing my stress, right? That is just like a side effect. So I would say number one is knowing your why. Why do you want to do it? Are you doing this for yourself? Are you doing this for your children? Are you doing this because you want to be a fabulous executive? Like, what's your why? Like, knowing your why. And then also, in terms of sticking to it, like, don't be so rigid. Like, I'll give you an example. I signed up, I do martial arts, and I've been doing it for a year. And I laugh that I'm consistently inconsistent, right? Like, some months I'll show up once a week. Sometimes I'll take a couple of months off, but I continue to show up. And even though I'm not there as much as I want to, I'm still like giving myself like kudos that, hey, Nadia, you're still showing up. If this is something you're doing that's hard, and even though you're not going as much as you would like to go, you're still showing up. So I think it's kind of like give yourself a pat on the back. Like, you're doing it, and just because you don't show up, we'll continue with the gym, for example. Like, let's say you take a couple weeks off because you're not feeling it. Well, when you get back to it, like, give yourself a high five. You went back, It doesn't have to be so rigid.
Yeah, great point. And I think, especially for the listeners, I do want to say this, right? This one big tip about ask why you want to do this. I think that's your driver. That's what is going to drive you to do what you're trying to do. So all of us who are listening, let's put it down. Why do you want to be healthy? Why do you want to be de-stressed? And what is that why? If we can figure that out, that becomes your driver. And you also mentioned about, pat yourself and pat your back because you showed up. And that's one thing I also received an advice, right? A lot of times you get stressed out because you're not doing what you thought, what you wanted to do. And, don't get stressed about it. Take it easy and take small steps initially, and then you get into that habit. They always say, right, 21 days, it becomes a habit. You practice it continuously. So great suggestions and great tips, Nadia. I know I'm looking at the time. We probably have a few questions from the listeners. Joanne, do we have some questions out there? So I want to make sure we give some time for responding to those questions.
I'll even go on video.
Okay,
We do
awesome.
have a couple of questions, and you have addressed some of it in your talk. One of the questions did deal with technology. We all love technology. Look, we're using technology right now. We are an organization about technology. But and I guess it was an opinion question, do you think that this instant access life that we all lead now is making stress worse for people? Because, everything is right away. And so that was one of the questions.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I 100% think that life is harder these days because of technology. Look, technology is great. Technology has helped us in so many ways. But the instant access to, we'll use media, for example, right? Like having access to the worst catastrophes all over the world 24 hours a day, right? Social media can be great, but comparing yourself to other people and seeing what people are doing, and also just getting pinged. Like, okay, so if you think about it, we used to only be able to communicate via phone, landline, right? And then there's fax, and now we've got all types of apps. You're being pinged all the time. And so for me, what I like to do is I like to turn off a lot of my notifications, right? I unsubscribe from a million emails. I think my mom is on this call. I tell her the same thing. I'm like, why are you subscribed to you have 5,000 things in your inbox? Like, unsubscribe so you stop getting these emails, right? I will say though, the benefit of technology, aside from being able to connect, is like there are some great apps out there. So Calm is one of my favorite apps. I should really be a sponsor for them because I love them so much. Calm is great. It's a mindfulness meditative app. It is a great way for you. You could do like as little as like a 1 minute meditation. There's reminders. And so technology is great that we have the resources. But again, it's, you know yourself best. You know what you can manage and what you can't. Like turn off the notifications if they're not serving you. Unsubscribe from all the things that, like make it easy for yourself. That's what I say, like make life easy for yourself. So technology can be great in that aspect, but really I think things are harder as well because of it.
Great answer. Great answer. I get bombarded with the notifications every day. And I don't even open Facebook for weeks sometimes, just you get stuck into it. So you got to have that discipline of, how much you want to really get into the social media things, Yeah.
It can suck you into a vortex.
Completely.
It can just take you away for hours. We did have one other question, which was about breaking the cycle of stress. You know that a situation, a person, or whatever it is stressing you out. So you want to break away from that, whether it's through a conversation, whatever way it is. But just the thought of either maybe confronting a person or finding a way out of it, just the thought of getting out of the stress is stressing you out. So any suggestions for breaking that stress cycle that some people kind of find themselves in that loop?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
So the great thing about that is, one, the awareness that you've got the awareness of the trigger. Two, you've got the intention, I can't handle this. If it's a person, this is where boundaries come in. Now, boundaries are really, really hard for us, right? Because we, especially as women, it's hard for us to say no. We want to be appeasing and accommodating. So that's where the inner work comes in. It's like setting your boundaries. So if someone is doing something or saying something, or you're feeling in a bad certain way, it's like setting the boundaries. When I went through my period of doom and gloom many years ago, I cut off a lot of relationships because they were not in alignment with who I want to be. Like alignment is key, not just setting boundaries, but also being in alignment. So are your thoughts, are your actions, and are your words, are they all speaking the same language? Because you can say, I want to change, or I want to set boundaries, but if you don't take the action to set that boundary, there's no point, right? And so I think for that question, boundaries are key, is to making changes, right? And boundaries are not, a lot of people look at boundaries as a bad thing, but really it's a way to protect yourself, right? It's a way to keep your energy to yourself. So boundaries are key.
Yeah, great response, Nadia. People sometimes you don't have great conversations with people. And as you're going down that conversation, as you're into it, it's very difficult to withdraw, especially when you're in that, core conversation, in that mode of, having this debate or argument. It's so hard to pull out of it. And our ego comes first. It doesn't accept that you pull out and then, walk away from it because you want to win your debate. So I think it's really, as you rightly said, figuring out what is your trigger and then actually recognizing when is the right time to take the action and move out of it. It's a very tough thing to practice. But that's the only way we can do that, right? Without hurting other person's ego, and also compromising on your own ego and saying it's okay, let it go. Yeah.
Exactly. And this has been such a great conversation. I know we're like running out of time, but I did have one more poll. I'd like to poll, if there's no more questions, Joanne, I'd like to see if we could answer one more poll question. All right. I'd love to know how confident you are and be able to make these intentional changes for you to have a happier and healthier life. I'd love to hear from you. Yeah. Oh, 50%, nice. Very confident. I love that. For those of you who are not confident, I'd invite you to feel free to connect with me. I want to say thank you so much for letting me be part of your workday and your lunch hour. If you would like to reach out and talk about workplace wellness, here is my website, here is my email, and the QR goes to my LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you. I work with corporations to focus on wellness as a means to increase productivity, and profitability. And if you have any questions or would like to learn more, feel free to connect. I'm all about health and wellness, and I'd love to get to know you better. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Chaya, and thank you, Joanne.
Thanks, Nadia. It's a wonderful conversation, can go on for hours, and in this limited time, you made it so effective. And, I hope our listeners have some tools and techniques to take home and start practicing how to de-stress themselves and take care of themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. And just a few things to wrap it up as we finish up our day and now are feeling a better way to de-stress and relax in our lives. Make sure that you follow us and join us at our shetek.net, where you can engage and empower and employ. SheTek is all about helping women connect with other women to build their technology background and to be better, to be them be their best selves. There you go. Got it out there. We have some wonderful things coming up too. We have some more webinars coming soon where we'll be talking about communication and have some tech trainings coming up. And we have an excellent job readiness training program that you have to stay tuned for, because we're going to be launching that in this first quarter. And it's going to be really great for everybody to kind of build up that skill set to get you the jobs and the positions that you want in this world. Chaya, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think you covered everything. And as Joanne mentioned, there are very interesting training programs coming up with SheTek. So join our community so you get notified with everything that's happening. We have a very exciting year ahead. So enjoy the journey this year. And with this beautiful topic, followed by a lot of technical boot camps and a lot of other webinars are going to be coming up. So stay tuned. Thank you.
It's going to be a great 2024. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thanks.
And we can't wait to see you soon.